Jai, so we are beginning our class today. Let's do the Mangala Charanam together. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai. So we are going to our new verse for the week. We'll do the whole Chatra Sloki. So we did 10:8, 10:9, and now we're doing 10:10. Ready? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Let's do it again. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly, okay, we have to, sorry. Let's start from text 8, and we'll do 8, 9, and 10. Ready? With the chorus and everything. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. I give the understanding.
That's our mercy.
I give the understanding.
That's our mercy.
I give the understanding to my devotees so that they can come to me. I am the source of all. The thoughts of my pure devotees always dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. I give the understanding.
That's our mercy.
I give the understanding.
That's our mercy.
I give the understanding to my devotees so that they can come to me. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Yes, I give the understanding.
That's our mercy.
I give the understanding.
That's our mercy.
I give the understanding to my devotees so that they can come to me. Woo! All right. I know, because the next week will be the next one. Well, yeah, next week. Jai, we have Aruna and Lavanga out there and Zoomland. And okay, where did we end off? We were in chapter. Let's see if I put my bookmark. Did we finish chapter 13? Oh my God, it was a while back when we had class. Sorry about this.
No.
Where did we end off?
Are you lecturing?
Yes. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through cultivative. We didn't read
We
that.
were talking about, you asked that, what are the process, what is the process of getting knowledge?
Yeah, we passed that part.
And legal activities, knowledge, ability, experience.
Okay, let's just, oh yeah, we were talking about the super soul. Super soul is never divided. Gyanagamyam. We did Gyanagamyam, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we definitely did that.
Yeah.
The field of activities. Okay, let's start with text 19. Iti Kshetram. Actually, I'm pretty sure we read that. Let's start with text 20. Yeah.
What chapter?
13. So we're Bhagavad Gita 13:20. This is Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ji?
Oh,
Yeah,
we did that.
we did? Okay, 21. Did we talk about, no, we talked about how the living entities are responsible for their own suffering, right?
With Mahatma.
Okay, oh yeah, okay, we're starting at 22. Now I totally remember. Text 22, this is the one we left off on actually. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jangunan karnam guna sangosya stada satyoni janmasu. Right, want to read prakriti?
The living entity in material nature thus follows the base of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to this association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. Purport. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on, and in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. That is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life.
Right. Yeah, so this is a very important verse. And it's one of our Bhakti Shastri memorization verses too. So we'll get to this verse soon to memorize. So it's talking about the living entity, the Purusha, the person, and the situation here in the material world. So Prakriti means material nature and Sta means being situated. So this explains our situation, that we are souls, people, we're souls situated within Prakriti. So Purusha, Prakriti, Stohi. And why, how did we get to be situated here in material nature? Is because Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan. Because we're thinking that we are the enjoyers and that this Prakriti is here for our enjoyment. So then different people different people try to enjoy material nature in different ways, depending on what? Two things.
Their attachments.
Attachments, yeah, but what determines like what kind of things they are attached to, or what things they like?
Their association.
Association, yeah, who they associate with, and of course this is connected also, but Karanam Guna, right? The modes of nature. Association with the modes of nature. So also it's association with the modes, but how do we associate with the modes? Is we associate with people who are influenced by certain modes, right? So our association is so important. It's basically like the singular most important thing in our lives, you know, to determine what our experience of life is going to be, what our destination after death is going to be, how much spiritual advancement we make, or how much Maya we get into, or how we degrade. Like everything that happens is basically dependent on our association. And that's why there's that saying that just tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. And that's why, you know, parents always become very concerned when they start thinking that their children are hanging out with the wrong crowd, as they say, right? That you're starting to associate with some bad kids, some troublemakers. Because if they know that the children associate with troublemakers, they're going to become a troublemaker. It's just a matter of time. They're associating with, you know, girls that are always just talking about boys and dressing themselves up to try to attract the boys, then their daughter's going to become one of those kinds of girls. If they're associating with boys that are just being reckless and crazy, or, you know, smoking cigarettes behind the school building or something, then their son's going to become one of those bad boys too. He's going to come home with little nicotine stains on his fingers and things and make lies about it. So Lavang is laughing. Real, yeah. So it depends on our association. So, and people are different depending on the modes of nature that they allow themselves to be influenced by. So, yeah. What we like, our likes and dislikes are largely determined by the modes, right? If you think about music. So people who are influenced by the mode of ignorance, they're going to be attracted to what kinds of music? Like
Trap music.
trap?
Yeah.
Like trashy rap music?
Yeah, trap is like this mumble rap.
Okay.
I was
So
gonna say that if you turn on the radio, they have this mumble rap where you can't hear what they're saying, just like like
it's
that.
just like all slurred and just like the person is like intoxicated and can't even get their words out properly.
Yeah, like I'm not even exaggerating. It doesn't have any like coherent flow to it, and people just listen to it for like the beat, not the lyrics.
Yeah.
I must say that despite 4 years in Krishna consciousness, I'm still quite attached to hip hop.
Which mode of nature is hip hop in?
I think passion, well, depends. If you listen to like Cardi B, then I would say ignorance. But if you listen to like Kendrick Lamar, then it would be like passion.
Yeah. Yeah, so passion is probably, yeah, like hip hop, rock and roll, right? Definitely mode of passion, because a lot of the lyrics, then the music is kind of like it revs you up and gets you going, right? And then the lyrics are often about something associated with, you know,
Body.
the body, romance, I don't know, stuff like that. And then so that's mode of passion. Mode of goodness would be what?
It'd be more like classical, right?
Classical music,
music.
yeah, some nice calming instrumentals, something very, you know, sophisticated and artistic, something that actually requires a lot of skill to produce, you know, instead of just like boom, 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 boom. Right. And then And then, of course, there's beyond the modes, there's transcendental music, which is
Kirtan.
kirtan. Yeah, kirtan, bhajans. So devotional music, songs that are written for the glorification of God. So, yeah. So depending on which mode of nature we'll be influenced by, we'll be drawn to certain kinds of music, certain kinds of movies, certain kinds of books, certain kinds of food, and all that. And Krishna is going to discuss in detail all these different modes of nature in upcoming chapters, starting from chapter 14. And yeah, the reason he's doing that is because he's just stressing here that it's so important. So he's like, I want to elaborate on this, because basically the modes of nature that you associate within this life is going to determine what
What is the next?
what is your next birth, right? You're going to meet with either good or evil in some species in your next birth. So if we associate with people and all of the things that they do in the mode of ignorance, then we're probably going to get degraded into some kind of like very ignorant species of life, like an animal form, right? And if we associate people in the mode of passion, then we could take birth as a human being, but very materialistic. And if we associate people in the mode of goodness, we might be elevated to higher planets. Maybe we become like in Swargaloka in the heavenly planets or something. And if we associate with devotees, then devotees of the Lord, then we can get free from the cycle of birth and death and attain our eternal spiritual forms in the spiritual world. So this is very, very important to decide who we're going to associate with, what we're going to do. And even sometimes we might think we're safe, oh, I'm associating with devotees, but what are you doing with the devotees? Right? Are you doing all like mode of ignorance things with the devotees? And it's not going to help you. I mean, I guess it's better than doing it with out and out materialists, but yeah, sometimes devotees we get together and we think we're safe because we're in sadhu sangha. But yeah, if we're doing things that are asadhu with the so-called sadhus, then it's still asadhu. It doesn't make it like good because you're doing it with devotees. It's like one Gurukuli was telling me that all these Gurukuli like youth would get together, like when they were in their 20s or something. They went through Gurukul, they graduated, and they kind of went through a phase where they're just like, let's see what's out there in the material world to enjoy. And they would get together, like 40 of them, 40 or 50 of them, and they would just go to a bar or a nightclub, and they would just be like drinking and dancing and going wild. And they were like going hard, like even the non-devotees were just like, whoa, these guys are really like intense. But they kind of like, even though they were just being ridiculous, but they kind of felt like, well, we're doing this together, so it's kind of safe. But of course, they were still degrading themselves. You still get the impact of the mode of ignorance. But Krishna is so kind that yeah. But he said, I mean, the person who was telling me about it, he said that even while they were trying their best, they were trying their hardest, like harder than the materialists. They were trying to enjoy those things, but something in the back of their mind was just like, you know what? This is so stupid. Why are you doing this? So that's Krishna's kindness. Krishna's mercy is that if you ever serve him, he never lets you go. He might put you on a long leash, like sometimes people go walking their dogs, and if you're walking in the city or something, you have to keep him on a short leash so he doesn't bite anyone or scare anyone or whatever. But if you're out in the countryside, you can let the leash go along. They have these kind of dog leashes that have like a wrap thing, and you can just let him go like, 20, 30 feet away. He's still like, so he feels like he's free because he has a lot of room to run side to side and all over the place, but you still have a hold on him. So sometimes Krishna, like, devotees, he'll let the devotees feel like they're, going out and doing all kinds of stuff, and they're on their own, they're independent, and they're living their life. But he's got them on the leash, and at any moment he can just press the button and reel them back in. So Krishna's very kind. Lavanga?
Yeah, what you're saying reminds me of this girl that I met. She lived in the ashram for maybe like 7 years, like some ashram. And she had learned a lot of verses during this time. It was very serious. But at some point there were some issues, and she started to feel like, oh, I wasted, I wanted to be an actress. I didn't do that because I took up this Christian consciousness, and she just left and went to California to pursue this acting career. And she said, it actually started to work. She was getting, small roles and bigger roles. And then, she got to be like in a movie with Johnny Depp or something. And she said, though, I always was thinking, like your mind starts to think, what's next? What's next? You're never satisfied. And she even said, I would think of these Bhagavad Gita verses that I had memorized. And then I would think of it random. But she said I would be so mad because I was trying to forget Krishna. and Krishna wouldn't let me forget him. Like these verses would come up about the material world. And she said, I didn't want it to be true, but it just kept coming up and coming up, coming up. And finally, she realized that she was just so tired of like pursuing all these things and went back to Krishna consciousness.
Wow. Yeah. Krishna's mercy. Yeah. Learning verses is important. He can save you in your hour of need, right? Like Gajendra. He was a devotee in his past life and he learned some verses. And then later, because of his offenses, he became an elephant. But even in his elephant body, when he was attacked by a crocodile and he was on the moment of death, he remembered those verses that he learned in his previous life, and he was able to use those verses and pray to the Lord. And then Lord Vishnu came on his Garuda and cut off the head of the crocodile and saved him and took Gajendra back to Godhead. So yeah, that's why we take some time each day to practice our verses. Hopefully they stick with us and they can save us. So yeah, Prabhupada says that this is a, so yeah, by association, he said that we get a certain body, and even the crazy thing, see, this is the thing that's totally insane about this whole process, is that even when we're born as a worm or a fish or a bug, we still think that we're the master. That's what he says, see? He says, under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, a man, sometimes a beast, a bird, a worm, an aquatic, a saintly man, or as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. Right? It's like, sometimes you see, oh my God, sometimes I get one of these big, in Texas, it seems like there's a lot of cockroaches. So sometimes I get like one of these big cockroaches in my room, and then I'll be trying to catch him. And he's like challenging me. He's just looking me in the eye and he's like, oh yeah, you think you're gonna get me? You don't know who I am. I'm King Cockroach and I'm here to stake out my turf. So he's like, you can see this, like he's got this attitude. Yeah, really. He's got an attitude and he's just challenging me as if it's his room. He's like, who do you think you are, trying to kick me out of my room? And yeah, of course, I always win. But somehow I think that same one ends up coming back into the same room. Anyways, so it just goes to show that even as a bug, the soul and the body of a bug still thinks that he's the master and the Lord and the enjoyer of his circumstances. And that's how strong Maya is. Maya is very, very strong. So we need to be very careful. So Prabhupada says we have to change this conception, to change this material consciousness. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. So it says Arjuna is hearing right now from Krishna. And we also are hearing Krishna's words in the Bhagavad Gita. So good, we're making a change. This is like, we've been in this trap, this illusion, this insanity for many lifetimes, thinking I'm this body, think I'm the Lord and the master and the enjoyer and the controller. But we're hearing here that no, actually you're stuck in some embarrassing species of body, material body, due to your association. And yeah, you're coming across good people and evil people and good circumstances and bad circumstances. And this is very unnatural for an eternal, blissful spirit soul. So you got to get out of this. And we just need to keep hearing this again and again, like every day, like daily dose, because it's like a disease, we have this disease, Prabhupada say it's like the material disease, and the medicine is hearing and chanting. Hearing Bhagavad Gita, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting Hare Krishna, reciting verses. And if you have a disease, you can't just take the medicine once and then think you're going to be good. You got to take it every day, right? Daily dose, twice a day. 2 tablets twice a day, like that, and do the full course of the medicine. And sometimes you have a disease that's so bad that you need to just stay on that medicine for the rest of your life. You know, if you have a chronic disease, otherwise you'll have like a relapse or the symptoms will flare up and make you miserable. So this is the material disease is one of these diseases. As long as we are in this material body, we're going to be, the risk of the flare up, the relapse is there. So we need to just keep taking the medicine every day, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the morning, hearing Bhagavad Gita in the afternoon, chanting 16 rounds a day. And that way we can keep ourselves healthy in this situation. Okay. Good. So he described the living entity situation here in the material nature. And now he's going to say that, like he said previously in this chapter, that we're not the only one in this body. There's somebody else, right? There's 2 kshatragyas, 2 knowers of the field, the individual soul and the super soul. And now he's going to say the same thing again. So text 23. Upadrashtanumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaraha Paramatmeti Chapyukto Dehesmin Purusha Paraha. Do you want to read Lavanga?
Yeah. Let's see here. 23, yes?
Yep.
Okay. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the supersoul. Purport. It is stated here that the supersoul, who is always with the individual soul, is the representation of the Supreme Lord. He is not an ordinary living entity, because the monist philosophers take the knower of the body to be one. They think that there is no difference between the supersoul and the individual soul. To clarify this, the Lord says that he is represented as the Paramatma in every body. He is different from the individual soul. He is para, transcendental. The individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the supersoul is present not as finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part in bodily activities, but as the witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. His name is Paramatma, not Atma. He is transcendental. It is distinctly clear that the Atma and Paramatma are different. The supersoul, the Paramatma, has legs and hands everywhere, but the individual soul does not. And because the Paramatma is the Supreme Lord, he is present within to sanction the individual's desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the supersoul, the individual soul cannot do anything. The individual is bhukta, or sustained, and the Lord is bhokta, or the maintainer. There are innumerable living entities, and he is staying in them as a friend. The fact is that every individual living entity is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and both of them are very intimately related as friends. But the living entity has the tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and acts independently in an attempt to dominate nature. And because he has this tendency, he is called the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity can be situated either in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. As long as he is conditioned by the material energy, the Supreme Lord, as his friend, the Supersoul, stays with him just to get him to return to the spiritual energy. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy, but due to his minute independence, the individual entity is continually rejecting the association of spiritual light. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife and the conditioned nature. The Lord, therefore, is always giving instruction from within and from without. From without, he gives instructions as stated in Bhagavad Gita, and from within, he tries to convince the living entity that his activities in the material field are not conducive to real happiness. Just give it up and turn your faith toward me. Then you will be happy, he says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramama, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, begins to advance toward a blissful eternal life of knowledge.
Jai, I like how you read that with feeling. Thank you. So, yeah, whenever I think about the Lord's expansion of Super Soul, I always feel like Krishna is just amazing. It's amazing how much he loves us, how much he cares about us. Because even though we turn away from him, and Prabhupada is saying that we are continually rejecting his association. It's continually rejecting him. But even though we turned away from him and are continually rejecting him, he stays with us. You know, he expands himself as a super soul and he comes right into our heart. And he's always trying to you know, bring us to our senses, basically. You know, bring us to yeah. From within, he tries to convince the living entity that his activities in the material world are not conducive to real happiness, right? And then from outside, he gives instructions. So here we're reading the outside. From outside, we're reading the Bhagavad Gita. And then from inside, the super soul is also trying to convince us, look, whenever we try to do something materially and we end up frustrated, super soul is like, just see, material life, material things don't make you happy. Or whenever, you know, we think we're going to be happy in a relationship and then relationship ends up being a big mess. And then he's like, just see, you know, you're never going to be happy in these material relationships based on sense gratification. But we're so dull. Although he's turning on the light and making us see, we're rejecting the association of the spiritual light, as Prabhupada puts it. So, yeah, that's misuse of independence. And he says that is the cause of our material strife in conditioned nature, is misusing our independence. So what we really have to do is properly use our independence and align our small amount of free will with the supreme will, right? Like it says in, I think in Christianity, they say, let thy will be done. In other words, let me do your will, dear Lord. Let thy will be my will. Right? So we're totally aligned. Let me do whatever you want me to do, O Krishna. Yeah, Lavanga?
This is reminding me in the fourth canto of Bhagavatam, in the 28th chapter, in that pastime where King Pranjana becomes a woman. Well, after he becomes Vaidarbhi, and she's in the forest with her husband, and her husband dies. And around, text 52, I think it is, Krishna comes to her in the form of a Brahmana, and this Brahmana represents the super soul. So it's like you were saying, he's saying, don't you remember me? I'm your very intimate friend, but you gave up my company to become enjoyer of the material world. Yeah. So it's a really sweet verse that goes off of what you're talking about. And then it goes, like, there's a whole section. It's about maybe 4 or 5 verses long, or maybe 3 or 4 verses from like 52 onwards. And, he's saying, we're just like 2 swans together in a lake and things like this, but we're very far away from our home. So it's a really good, I guess you could say, additional reading to this text and purport.
Yeah, it's nice. Like the relationship between the soul and the super soul is actually very intimate and very sweet. That's what Prabhupada is bringing out here, is that both of them are very intimately related as friends, right? The super soul is our best friend, and he's sitting there right in our heart, and he's like, hey, you should do this. This will be really good for you. You'll be happy doing this. And then we're like, I want to do this anyway. Oh, no, that's not going to be good. That's going to end up really bad. And then you do it anyway, and you end up like suffering. It's like, see, I told you, like, come on, please trust me. Just do this good thing. Read the Bhagavad Gita, like zoom into Prabhupada Priya's Bhagavad Gita class. And you're like, nah, I'm just going to go take a nap, or I'm going to go whatever. And then Super Soul's like, just see, you're not feeling good after that. Like, tomorrow join. So, yeah, so Super Soul is always trying to help us. And then another thing, so it says here, Upadrashta Anumanta Cha. So upadrashta means, upa means up or over, and drashta means seeing. So it literally means the upseer or the overseer, the one who's up there, seeing everything that we do, right? He's like in our hearts, but he's overseeing all of our thoughts and feelings and desires. And so he knows what we want. He knows exactly what we want. And he also knows exactly what we need and what we deserve. So sometimes we want things that are more than we actually deserve. So in that sense, he's the Anumanta, he's the permitter. So it's kind of like kids, you know, mommy, can I have this? Daddy, can I have this? And they're like, no, that's not good for you. Not gonna let you have it. Or the kid wants something, but then the parents are like, sorry, we can't afford that. We don't have enough money to buy that for you. So we have our karmic bank account, right? We have our credits of good karma, which will enable us to enjoy in different ways. And we can only enjoy to the extent that our karma allows it, right? So whatever our, and that's why some people, they have a lot of enjoyment or apparent enjoyment in their life. At least they have a lot of facility for enjoyment. And then other people, they don't have much facility at all for enjoyment. And that's because of their karma from previous life. So we don't know what our karma is, but the super soul knows all about it. And so he sees what we want, and he allows us, he permits us to enjoy to the extent that we deserve, right? So let's see, someone's praying, dear God, let me win the lottery. So you enter into this, you know, $1 million lottery or something, and you get your lottery ticket and you pray all day and all night, and then you get your ticket and scratch off the numbers. And then it's like you won $10, woohoo, you know? So you were praying to win the lottery. So Superstar's like, all right, win the lottery, but you don't have the good enough karma to win the million. So, you know, you get $10. That's all your based on what you did in your past life, that's all you get. So it's like that. Or yeah. And yeah, Prabhupada compares this to two birds in a tree. That might come up here in an upcoming purport. There's two birds in the tree. So there's one bird that's ourselves, that's the individual soul, that's just sitting in the tree and looking at all the sweet, juicy fruits in the tree and just trying to enjoy them, right? Pecking at this one. Oh, this one's nice and sweet. Pecks another one. Oh, that one's kind of sour. Pecks another one. Oh, that one's really ripe and juicy and good. Pecks another one. Oh, there's a worm in that one. Ugh. And then, right, so material world is like that. We're trying to enjoy ourselves, and sometimes we're getting a little bit of pleasure. Sometimes we're getting a lot of pleasure. Sometimes we're getting frustrated, and sometimes we're getting totally devastated. So that's our experience of life. Oh, Jista has a prop. Look at this. Check this out. Two birds in a tree. So
And the
yeah,
living entity has decided to look at Krishna.
this is the good news. So we're just gonna keep this for a second. So what I'm talking about now is that the living entity is like looking the other way and just looking for fruits. So what happens is the living entity eats too many bitter fruits by Krishna's arrangement, gets a really bad stomachache, and is just like, ugh, and looks the other way and happens to see the other bird, who is the super soul, who's like, yup, happiness is not in the fruits, happiness is with me. And then as soon as the little soul looks to Krishna, they start feeling relief. And then as the soul starts to actually engage in active service to Krishna, hearing about Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, doing devotional services, then he starts to feel all the happiness, much more happiness than even the sweetest fruits on that tree ever gave. So yeah, we need to look at the bird, the Paramatma. Look to the Paramatma and ask the Paramatma to guide us. You know, I'm here in this material world. I got myself in a big mess. I have no idea how to get out of it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Please guide me. Please, you are the overseer. You know everything. You're also the permitter. So don't allow me to do anything that's going to degrade myself. Just don't permit that. And encourage me and facilitate me in doing all kinds of activities that will lead to my spiritual advancement, that will lead to my gradual realization of my eternal identity, my loving relationship with Krishna, and going back home, back to Godhead. And then the super soul will be very happy because super soul is there only for that reason, just waiting, right? Like Prabhupada says here so nicely, he says, as long as we're conditioned by the material energy, the super soul, our best friend, stays with us just to try to get us to return to the spiritual energy. The Lord is always eager to take us back to the spiritual energy. So he's just sitting there waiting, like, when is this person going to wake up? When is this person going to start like realizing that they're not a material being? They're not meant to be in the material world. Material activities are useless. They're a soul. They have a relationship with me. They just need to turn to me and be connected with the spiritual energy because that's who they are. They're spiritual. And as soon as we do, super soul's like, yes, now we're talking. Now, and then he just gives us so much encouragement and support and facilitation and enthusiasm and rewards us every step of the way and helps us make progress back home, back to Godhead, right? Guiding us, continually guiding us from inside the heart and also arranging for us to meet devotees who can help us to come in contact with scriptures that can guide us and so that everything can be good. Yeah, so this is a real friend. This is our real friend, this is a super soul. So don't ignore the super soul. And that's why Krishna is saying, there's another person in that body, the transcendental enjoyer. So transcendental enjoyer, because super soul actually is the enjoyer. Like we're not the enjoyer, we're the servant. But Krishna is actually the enjoyer. But he doesn't try to enjoy the body like we do, right? It says here that, let's see. Yeah, the individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the super soul is present not as a finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part in bodily activities. So the super soul he doesn't take part in our bodily activities. He just is not into that. He has no interest in bodily activities. He's not trying to enjoy our bodies. And, we're also shouldn't be trying to enjoy our bodies. But he's just here to help us. Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments on this? Yeah, Pragati.
So I had like a couple of things going, but the question is, when we take any decision or we don't want to enjoy material desires, some voice comes within, and we can say that okay, this is super soul trying to guide us.
Yeah.
But how do we know that this is super soul or this is our childhood conditioning, which is
Or our mind, right? Yeah.
a mind or a super soul saying guiding
Yeah.
us?
So we can know because the super soul is always going to guide us according to Shastra, according to like Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, right? Whereas the mind generally tends to be materialistic and is going to guide us not according to Shastra, but according to basically like sense gratification, right? What's good either for our gross sense gratification or our subtle sense gratification. By subtle sense gratification, I mean what's kind of inflates the ego, wins us appreciation, recognition, power, control, status, position, like that. So that's what the mind tries to drag us into, these material so-called benefits, right? But the super soul will be the opposite. The super soul is going to try to put us in situations where we're going to be more humble, have more opportunities for service, have good association with devotees, have, transcendental knowledge, right? So if it's 3:45 and some voice inside you is saying, no, you've got a lot more important things to do than coming to the Bhagavad Gita class, then that's your mind. And if you're engrossed in doing something and all of a sudden some voice just says, hey, it's time for Bhagavad Gita class, that's the super soul. Right? Yeah.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes, go for it, Kritika.
What if it is like 3:45 and your mind says either you should chant or you should attend the Bhagavad Gita class, then what we should do?
You should tell your mind that you should have chanted your rounds in the morning, not waited till 3:45.
Okay. Okay.
Because actually that's how that's another way that the mind tricks us, right? Mind is very smart. So mind is like, all right, the person's trying to be a devotee. They're not just gonna go to eat pizza or something at 4 o'clock. They're gonna, but I can trick them by convincing them to go do some spiritual thing, right? But
Mm.
yeah, but that's also Maya, because see, you're gonna chant your 16 rounds anyway, right? So you can either chant your 16 rounds at another time, and have your 16 rounds plus the Bhagavad Gita class, or you can chant your 16 rounds during the Bhagavad Gita class, and then you get only 16 rounds and no Bhagavad Gita class. And then because you didn't get the Bhagavad Gita class, the next day, one thing is, you're not going to be so enthused to chant your 16 rounds because you didn't do a sufficient hearing. Second thing is that because you let your mind win, then the mind gets stronger and you get weaker. And the next time your mind's going to say something like, hey, you know what? Krishna House, you don't have to chant 16 rounds. You only have to chant 8. Why don't you just go with 8? And then you have more time to rest and have some me time and do your hobbies. And because your mind became strong and you became weak, then because you already indulged your mind, and then you're like, yeah, I really need to take it easy on myself. And then before you know it, it's like, then your mind gets even stronger. Mind's like, oh yeah, we're on a roll here. So the mind's like, you came home late, you missed prasadam. Why don't you just go to Taco Bell, And then you're like, yeah, I'm really hungry, and it's not my fault that the restaurant wasn't open today. And so let me just go out and get something to eat. So then your mind is really getting strong. And then next thing you know, it's like time to wake up in the morning. It's like, oh, Krishna House, there's so many rules to wake up. Who wakes up at like 5 o'clock in the morning? Oh my God, this is just like not even human. And better you just get a place outside, where you can get into your own routine, something that works better for you. So the trouble is, see, the mind, it poses itself as our well-wisher. It actually poses itself as like it's our best friend, but it's actually our worst enemy. So that's why we need to also, have a guru who we can consult when we're not sure. And yeah, just don't indulge the mind.
Okay. I had one more question. too.
And then the craziest thing about the mind, we were talking about this the other day, the craziest thing about the mind is that, okay, right, so you'll listen to your mind and you'll chant your japa instead of coming to Bhagavad Gita class. And then as soon as like 6 o'clock rolls around or something, your mind will be like, you're such a loser. I can't believe you just missed the Bhagavad Gita class, right? And it'll make you feel really bad for it. In fact, you're such a loser, like you're hopeless for spiritual life. You may as well just give it up, Or you'll go out to Taco Bell and eat some, whatever, some food out there. And then afterwards your mind will be like, ugh, why are you so stupid? You should have known this like fast food stuff was gonna make you sick. What's wrong with you? So the same mind that like convinces you to go do something afterwards is gonna tell you that you were really stupid for doing it. And so yeah, the mind is just like bad. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that when we wake up in the morning, we have to beat our mind with a broomstick. And before we go to bed at night, we have to beat the mind with shoes. Just put it in its place, And that's why when I was a new devotee, my mind was so strong. It was preaching to me so hard. And it was really difficult sometimes to like, not listen to it. And so, yeah, somebody told me that you should start taking cold showers because the mind is going to scream. You turn on that water, just the cold shower, especially I was living in the UK at the time. So the cold water was very cold. And so I turned on that cold water and I would just be like, every cell in my body was just like, no. And my mind would be like, are you crazy? You just got out of a nice warm bed and you're going to jump into that torture chamber called the shower. Why would you subject yourself to this? And I'd be like, no, listen here, dear mind. We are doing this whether you like it or not. And then I would just get in the shower and take that freezing cold shower and get out. And as soon as I got out of the shower, I would be like, yes. It's like spiritually, I'd be feeling so strong. I would feel like, okay, I conquered my mind. First thing I did in the day was defeat my mind. And now I'm in the winning position. Like I'm ahead of the game. And that would empower me to just put my mind in its place for the rest of the day. So that later, you know, when I was out in Sankirtana, mine was like, why don't you just go sit in the library? It's nice and warm in there instead of standing out here in the freezing cold. And then I would be like, you know what, mind? No, we're not doing that. So, yeah. So we
Yeah,
just have to
actually,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Sorry. So that's what exactly my question is. Like, it's gonna trick us with like the same kind of like so-called devotional activities. Like you said, like, okay, go sit in the library and read some books. Don't go on Sankirtan. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's like it's tricking you in that, in in like that zone, you know?
Yeah. It's very tricky. Maya is so smart and she knows exactly she knows exactly what our like weaknesses are, you know? She's like a very good lawyer. So we need to be really strong. And that's why we need to study the scriptures, because we need to know the law books. Because when the lawyer is like saying something that is not according to the law books, then you're just like, sorry, but you have no precedent for saying that. That's totally bogus. Throw that out. Contempt of court. Right? Like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's read. Oh, Pragati.
I was also thinking, like, it's just a comment which I thought. Here, I think this gave the obstacles of every, like, the whole life, because they say that you think of being the enjoyer and getting the enjoyer. I think it creates all the desires that I want to enjoy this, and that desire is a obstacle for the surrender, because like I was just thinking that why we cannot surrender, because maybe we fear to lose all these enjoyments. Like, what if I give everything to Krishna, and then how I'm
What about me?
what about me? And that
Yeah.
that feeling stops us in surrendering to Krishna, and maybe the cause of all the miseries we
Yeah,
have.
that's what it is. Yeah, that's why people have a hard time becoming devotees. Because, you know, especially like, you know, we have this beautiful Krishna house, Dallas ashram here, and you can come live here and be happy practicing Krishna consciousness. But people are like, oh, but what about my freedom? And what about this habit that I do? And what about my dog? And what about this? And how am I going to earn money? And if I don't have a job and I don't have money, then how am I going to be happy? And yeah. So because we're still convinced that happiness is in material things, that Krishna is not the source of happiness. Yeah. So
And we think that the source is this material nature instead of Krishna.
yeah, material things will make us happy, and material things are attainable by, you know, money and independence. And if we give up our independence and give up our source of income, then we're going to be miserable. Right? And even saying that, it's very convincing, right? Like I just said that and you were probably like, yeah, well, it's true, isn't it? But actually, if we yeah, move into the ashram and then you accept the rules of the ashram, that mean, okay, you got to wake up early in the morning, come to Mangalarti, chant japa, Hare Krishna Mahamantra japa, and go to temple, worship Srila Prabhupada, and listen to Bhagavatam class, come to Bhagavad. It's like you actually feel a lot happier than you ever did in your whole life, right?
Yeah.
Pragati's nodding her head, yes. Because material things are not the source of happiness. Actually, Krishna is the source of happiness. So the more we connect to Krishna, the more happy we're going to be. And the more we distance ourselves from Krishna, the more miserable we're going to be. And so to have that intimate relationship with Krishna requires us to surrender, you know, like we have to you know, give up some of our nonsense, clean up our lives a little bit. Yeah.
How do we know that what we need to give up?
What we need to give up? Well, we need to know what's favorable for our spiritual advancement and what's unfavorable. Right. So some things are obvious, some things you're not so sure, right? Then you just need some guidance from a guru. That's why the system is that for spiritual life, Krishna insists, you know, he says, just try to learn the truth by doing what? Approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from the spiritual master submissively and render service to the spiritual master. And spiritual master can impart knowledge to you because they've seen the truth. So they have, we have very limited vision, especially like if we're very heavily conditioned, if we're in the mode of ignorance, we're basically, that means darkness, right? Tamagun means darkness. And in darkness, you can't see. You can't see where you are. You can't see where you're going. You have no idea where to turn, what's good for you. You don't even know what your options are. So then, and the mode of passion is like, you know, maybe there's a little bit more illumination, but it's so fuzzy and cloudy and blurry that you're still just kind of fumbling around, trial and error, trying this, getting burnt, trying that, getting kicked, trying this. Okay, there's a little thrill in that, but it didn't last long, you know, and so that's the mode of passion. Mode of goodness only where we start to get a little bit of clarity. And then transcendental platform, crystal clear. So we need to, while we're still influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, which are very predominant in this world, so it's really hard to get out of them, except by devotional service, then we really need to take guidance from somebody who's at least in the mode of goodness, or ideally on the transcendental platform, because then they can actually see. They can see very clearly where we are, what's favorable, what's unfavorable, what we need to advance, what we need to do to get purified, what we need to let go of, what we need to hold on to, right? So that's why Krishna says that we should inquire submissively. In other words, don't just ask questions and be like, all right, thanks for your advice. Not right, but actually inquire submissively, that I'm opening my heart. I'm willing to accept your guidance, even if my mind is kind of like, that's crazy. But I'm just going to do it because I trust you. I have faith in you. I have more faith in you than I have in myself. Yeah. And then do some service, right? Not just only go and take the person's time, but actually do something to try to please them, to assist them with their needs, with their mission. Okay. Anything else? Interesting. Like, let's just read the next verse, because this is a little bit of a summary of the last couple of verses. Ya evam veti purusham prakritim cha gunai saha sarvata vartamanopi nasabhuyo bijayate. Someone else want to read out there? Olavanga?
Yeah, I can read this. I had a comment, but I'll read this. It's
Okay.
One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Purport. Clear understanding of material nature, the supersoul, the individual soul, and their interrelation makes one eligible to become liberated and turn to the spiritual atmosphere without being forced to return to this material nature. This is the result of knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly that the living entity has by chance fallen into this material existence. By his personal endeavor in the association with authorities, saintly persons, and a spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of Godhead. Then it is certain that he will never come again into this material existence. He will be transferred into the spiritual world for a blissful eternal life of knowledge.
Yeah. So you see why we're spending so much time here on these two verses, because Krishna is saying that if we can simply understand these points, the position of the living entity in material nature, the interactions of the modes of nature, how they affect us, the super soul, how he's helping us and guiding us and overseeing and sanctioning things. Just by understanding this, we can attain liberation. So we need to understand this very, very well. And thank you, Krishna, for making it very clear here in Bhagavad Gita, and for Srila Prabhupada for explaining it, because we can actually understand this and get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. Be transferred into the spiritual world for a blissful eternal life of knowledge. Haribo. All right. So it's 5:03, my clock. I think we'll just wrap it up here. Okay. All right then. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. Gaura Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol.
Haribo.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna see if I have any. Jai. So we are beginning our class today. Let's do. Actually, we just ended it. But that's okay. Hare Krishna. So we'll see you next time.